It's Chinese New Year, and in 2019, during Chinese New Year, I went to the theater and saw a film in Chinese. It's with English subtitles. It was the biggest science fiction film in China at the time, called The Wandering Earth. The Wandering Earth is about a cataclysm that's happening on Earth. The sun is expanding in size and is putting Earth in danger of just being destroyed. So, what happens? The world unites to construct these giant power generators that are going to move the Earth out of its orbit into a place that is away from the sun, into closer to Jupiter. That's the story of the first Wandering Earth. And they have these giant arc reactors that take up like a whole city is one reactor. That it looks like what's on the back of the Star Destroyer, from the original Star Wars. Those engines, these sort of glowing sort of engines. It looks like a sort of a half sphere that is powered. But what happens is, the story of the first Wandering Earth is one of the arc reactors isn't working, and a group of just regular citizens have to go underneath and restart the reactor so the Earth can be moved to safety into orbit around Jupiter. That is the story of the first Wandering Earth, and it was huge. It's very, very much, you see the Chinese pride in this. It's very heroic. I think there's one character that's a white guy that's Australian in the first movie, and I enjoyed it. It's based on a novel. I'm trying to find the name. Can you look that up, Alan? The name of the author of the novel. But the first Wandering Earth movie is currently on Netflix. I strongly recommend it. It's a straight up action movie about a bunch of people, normal citizens, who want to save the planet by going into this reactor, restarting it as a way to move Earth to safety. It's kind of wild. Like, what actually happens if we move out of Earth's orbit? Will we be getting enough energy from the sun to sustain our planet? So there's an environmental message, but it's not too heavy. There's also a message about duty to future generations. There's a great relationship between a grandfather and grandkids in the first Wandering Earth that I found very heartwarming. It's a straight up action movie. It's like Michael Bay in Chinese is what the first Wandering Earth is. The Wandering Earth 2 is a direct sequel to the Wandering Earth 1, where the Earth is now put in more danger when the moon ends up is it's kind of a ripoff of Moonfall, to be honest, where the moon is crumbling and will crash on Earth, and they have to move the Earth away far enough from the moon so that the moon doesn't crash into Earth, murdering everybody. In addition, they've got to take this, these engines have to then propel the Wandering Earth into another solar system, Alpha Centauri, and the journey will take 2,500 years or 100 generations. I didn't like the Wandering Earth 2 as much as Wandering Earth 1. The Wandering Earth 2 almost comes off like, parts of it come off like a documentary. It starts off with these terrorists that are trying to destroy this. Basically, it's like an elevator that takes you above Earth's orbit, Earth's atmosphere. And they use it to get to space stations and do all sorts of outer space. But it's literally, rather than rocket ships, they have a giant elevator that goes beyond the atmosphere, and some terrorists sabotage it. The opening action scene with drones is crazy. It's so good. It's the first like 20, almost 30 minutes of the movie is this intense action set piece for the Wandering Earth 2. And then you meet like government officials and the head of China at the time, and it takes you all the way through like 2040. And it's a similar adventure where they have to send a bunch of intrepid astronauts to the moon to set explosives. That's kind of the action in the second half of the movie. They've got to get these explosives on the moon, just enough of them to vaporize it so it's out of harm's way of Earth. Another sort of epic scale. I just didn't like it as much as the first Wandering Earth, which felt like a straight up Michael Bay action movie. This movie felt a little bit too political because it got into the politics of different countries. Like America's doing this, and then the Chinese are doing this. And the Russians, and what's weird, the Russians are working with the Chinese, and they like want to sort of it's there's some weird political interplay here. It's not so much like lecturing and like hit you over the head, but it's like, oh, okay. I mean, this stuff happens in it happens in other action movies. I just thought it was a little more than the first one where it wasn't so political. Like Earth was kind of united in the Wandering Earth project. It's a fascinating sci-fi concept. It's incredibly ambitious. I'm strongly recommending The Wandering Earth on Netflix and Wandering Earth 2 if it's playing near you. It's actually at Alan, if you want to see it, it's at AMC theaters and it's
Okay.
at the Regal. It's at Regal and AMC.
Yeah, I remember the Wandering Earth being at AMC. I remember when I read the description of Wandering Earth, the thing that caught my mind, or the thing I thought about was, well, the Earth needs to rotate in order to maintain gravity, and if you strap rockets to the Earth, doesn't that affect the way it rotates? And then doesn't that cause more problems? Okay.
Alan,
The other thing is
questions, Alan. Too many questions, Alan.
But
The
the thing about Wandering too, when I knew you were going to talk about this, it reminded me of Train to Busan and Peninsula. Train to Busan is a great zombie movie on a train, and they followed up with Peninsula, which was basically, Walking Dead. One of the takes place in a town or something like that.
Well,
and I'm like, it's like it felt like, are we going to get the same thing where it's a huge departure from the first movie?
First of all, you're exactly right, and that could not be a better description because Train to Busan is awesome. Great zombie movie. Haven't seen anything like it. It's different. I really enjoyed it. And then Peninsula is like tries to ground it in here's what the world is now.
Yeah.
Now that there are zombies, here's how things function. There's sort of this like, illegal economy and it's just weird. This is how people survive. And Wandering Earth 2 does exactly that. It's like, here's how Earthlings now have learned to cope on a basically a giant starship that happens to also be the planet Earth. It's a little like nonsensical. They don't really stop long enough to tell you about the science of how this would even work. I know that it goes into more detail in the novel. I just like the ambitiousness of this. Like we're not getting this kind of science fiction in America. Like, what is the big science fiction movie that people are trying to do? I mean, they're just not, they're not doing that. And so in spite of like Wandering Earth 2, mild recommendation to see it in theaters. If you can see it, check it out. But definitely check out The Wandering Earth, which is on Netflix now, because it's just straight up an action movie with this high sci-fi concept. Let's go.
Okay, so let me get to your novel question. It's based on 3 novels.
Yes.
The first novel is The Wandering Earth. The one you saw, Wandering Earth 2, is based on Supernova Era. And then there's a third novel called The Micro Age, which I assume if there's a third movie, it'll be based on that one.